So let us begin. The science of emotions, concepts that allow us to perceive ourselves, others, and life differently. Now, this is quite an unusual image here. We see a very small child playing with a huge snake. It seems that the parents are okay with this. This would be a nightmare for any parent in North America or perhaps even Europe. As you can see down below, this is happening in Thailand. So life is all perceptions. What is a horrible situation for one person can be something very safe and relaxing to another person. So let's talk about, as we move on, some of what science has learned about emotions during these last years. Now, you may be getting the image changing before my voice or after my voice. Sometimes they will not coincide. Now, every emotion creates certain peptides or hormones that are excreted in the hypothalamus. This is basically from the work of the reported in the Molecules of Emotion, the book by Candace Perth. You can find this book, Molecules of Emotion by Candace Perth, who has also appeared on the video, the DVD, What the Bleep Do We Know? And also the book with the same name. Now these peptides or hormones are excreted by the hypothalamus and they go out into the bloodstream and are received by specific receptacles on each cell. But as it turns out, these peptides are very similar to drugs. And what happens is that we actually become chemically addicted. Addiction is created between emotions and the cells desiring these peptides as they would desire any other kind of narcotic substance, such as nicotine or caffeine or even stronger drugs. So what happens is that we actually begin subconsciously to create situations in which we can get our dose, if you want to use that word, of peptides or hormones to which we have become addicted. We could become addicted to pain, to being done injustice to being unhappy, to being angry, to feeling guilty. All of these are possible emotions that a person can become addicted to and actually chemically need to experience these emotions and find ways to feel them. Sometimes with external events, and if we can't find an external event, then we may even create an internal event in order to feel this way. Another aspect in the creation of the way we perceive things are the synapses between nerves in our brain. Now this is a nerve cell or a neuron in a nerve cell, and you can see there's these like roots coming out and they are communicating with each other. Actually, the communication is chemical in the end here between one nerve and the other endings. And what happens is that when we begin to think in a certain way or react in very specific ways, that we actually become programmed, not only mentally and emotionally, but neurologically programmed to perceive life in certain ways and to react mentally and emotionally in very specific ways. And we become habituated to that. Now here is what we call a neural net. These are neurons or cells, and then these are the connecting links that have been created, which become habituated ways of perceiving certain behaviors, certain people, certain situations in life. And we automatically think in specific ways in which we have been programmed. So we become habituated chemically and neurologically, not only mentally and emotionally. Our mental and emotional programmings have become a part of our chemistry and neurology. Now, when we can change our perception and subsequent reactions, the old synapses are weakened. They actually atrophy. And we are able to create new synapses, new ways of perceiving life, of perceiving situations and people and behaviors. And thus, actually, our brain begins to change. And the habitual ways in which we perceive things begin to change, and we begin able to see life and people in different ways. And this is the whole purpose of the seminar that we give, the life coaching seminar, and energy psychology and cognitive therapy and analysis, which we'll be discussing further on. Now, here's a very unusual sight. You'll see a woman here feeding milk to thousands of rats. This is in a temple in India. Now, anyone who sees this will perceive that through their conditioning. They'll say, this is unhealthy, this is ridiculous. What are these people doing? They should be killing the rats, not feeding them, not attracting them. But these people who believe whatever they believe in this is a temple setting actually, believe that the rats too are an expression of the divine. Now what's happening here is that we are receiving by the eye 40 bits of information at every moment, and that eye is sending that to the brain. The image in the end is not created by the eye, but by the brain, depending on what the brain has already experienced. So we construct images. We construct what we see, not based on what the eyes are seeing, but what the brain is, how the brain is interpreting this and what it's relating it to, what points of reference it has. And of course, the emotions that we will create in ourselves will be based on the specific beliefs or neural nets that this particular image is going through. Now, with energy psychology, as well as active listening and cognitive therapy, and any other form of transformation, whether it be psychological or spiritual, we can change our perceptions and the way that we see things. And when we do that, we also change the chemistry of our cells and our neurological reactions. And we see what is there as it is, without needing to place an evaluation on it, without needing to judge it. It is what it is. Some people are doing this, and this is their right, as long as they don't perhaps ask us to do the same. Now, these are some fun games for a few minutes here we can go through. Do you see here a duck or a rabbit? Okay, so now we see here, some of you may see a duck, some of you may see a rabbit, some of you may see both. If you're seeing the duck, this is the beak, this is the eye, and this is the back of the head. If you're seeing a rabbit, this is the rabbit's ears, his eye, and his mouth is over here. So it's a game in perception, how everyone's mind may perceive that in a different way. Now, here's another interesting as you play on visualization. Some people may be seeing here a skull and other a woman at a mirror. Now, this would be the skull here, and this would be the teeth and the eyes, or this would be the woman, and this is her reflection in the mirror, and this is her table in which she has her cosmetics, which are the teeth of the skull and the two eyes of the skull. So it all depends on how our brain receives this information and what it constructs. Now, some of you may see a woman's face here, or a man playing the saxophone. It depends on how your mind is constructing what's on the page. So if you're seeing a man playing the saxophone, this is his nose, here's the saxophone, and his hands are here, his feet are down here, his head is up here. If you're seeing a woman's face, this is her hair, these are her two eyes, this is her nose, and this is her mouth. So each of you will have reacted in a different way when you saw this. The eyes are seeing the same thing, but the brain is constructing something different. Now this is an actual funny one here. Very few of you will probably see the 7 dolphins here. Most of you will see a couple in an erotic embrace. You have the man up behind, the woman in front, is maybe her breasts. But actually, children often see the dolphins. And I have to help you out. I have put the eyes of the dolphins with red. So one dolphin here, another here, another here. And you can see the dolphins now. Eye of the dolphin here and here. So it all depends on how our brain is programmed, whether we're going to see an erotic embrace or the 7 dolphins. Most children see the dolphins. Well, it depends on what they see on television, probably. Now, some of you will see angels here, and some of you will see little devils or demons or bats. So you can see here this angel with her angel wings, and you can see here this devil, and then they're interlaced. Another one down here, another angel over here, all depending on how your brain receives this black and white image. So we move on. Now, when we see something, this can generate a number of different reactions from our brain and from our mind. There is what we call the fast track, which is based on our primitive brain. We see something, say a dog in this case, which has bitten us in the past, and what happens is this creates a very quick reaction to save us, the reaction that we call running or fighting, fight or flight. And it doesn't actually go through the cerebral cortex. There's no analysis done. We see something and we react. So any kind of traumatic experiences we may have had in the past may cause this kind of reaction in our brain, and it just does not pass through our belief system. It does not, it just says this is danger and I react to it. The slow track, which goes through our cerebral cortex, and our interpretation is that it goes through the brain, it's interpreted, and then a reaction is created. With analysis and various forms of energy psychology, which are listed here, and other forms of therapy, we can change our programmed perceptions and experience different emotions, and that will alter our chemical and neurological habits. Now, we're going to move on here to a perception. This is a perception quite developed in spiritual teachings, but also here based on some concepts by a biologist and a psychologist called Jung. Rupert Sheldrake, you may have read some of his books, has created the theory of the morphogenetic field. It's made of 2 words, morphogenetic. Morpho means form, genetic means that which gives birth to form. These are Greek words. In which he says that we all have a common field, a common morphogenetic field, and we all input habits and knowledge and tendencies into that field and receive from that field, and thus from others, tendencies and habits and knowledge and skills. Similar to the concept of the collective subconscious of Carl Jung, in which we have a collective subconscious, and we are affected by the contents of this collective subconscious of other persons. So we are connected, and from which we are affected by common tendencies, thought forms, and emotions, as well as skills and knowledge. Thus, all of our new perceptions and reactions become more accessible to all others through that field. When we learn something, when we overcome a problem, or develop a new way of thinking, of feeling, of reacting, this changes the field. And that new behavior, new way of thinking, becomes more accessible, easier for other people to manifest. So in the center here, we have the pure formless consciousness, the divine consciousness, if you like. And this is passing through this morphogenetic field, and there's a field for every kind of species and being. There's this field for the species, and then the field for the individual. And as it passes through what we call here the causal body in spiritual teachings, that becomes an energy field, or the energy body, and then that manifests as that being, that specific being in the physical world. We could consider that this light here going through the film is actually divine consciousness, God consciousness, which then becomes all types of beings and even events and manifestations in the physical world. Now, a possible, another example that may help us understand this morphogenetic field would be some of the experiments that have taken place through the transcendental meditation groups. They gathered in a number of cities throughout the world. One of them, Washington, D.C., where there's a very high crime rate. And they brought in 4,000 meditators who, in cooperation with the police, did a study. Now, these people just sat in rooms and did a certain kind of meditation. It was in the summer. In fact, this was also explained in the book and movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? And the head of the police said, in order to get the results you people want, we'd have to have snow in the summer, in July, in Washington, D.C. That would be the only thing that would reduce the crime rate. But the Transcendental Meditation people had done this in 48 other cities, and they always found that the crime rate was reduced around 25%. And the same thing happened in Washington, D.C. And they were not visualizing peace. They were not visualizing that the crime rate would go down. They simply went into themselves and became aware of the deep peace within themselves. You could say that they became aware of that pure consciousness in the center of their being and not their thoughts. And it seems that this in some way, maybe through the morphogenetic field, affected people. And there was, in fact, a 25% rate reduction of crime in Washington, D.C. in that summer. You can look all this up on the internet, so it's well documented. Now, another experiment was done by a doctor, Japanese doctor Masaru Emoto, who did experiments in causing water to crystallize and then taking pictures of the crystallized water. And then he would emit certain emotions or blessings or ideas to the water to see if the crystalline structure of the water would change. And these are some amazing, this is in one of his book, he's gotten a book with hundreds of photographs. Here's water from a dam before a blessing. It looks pretty horrible, actually. There's no symmetry. It's dark. And then after a blessing, the water became this beautiful image on the right-hand side, showing that human emotions and intentions will affect the state of the water. And so the next question is, if our emotions are affecting and our intentions are affecting water so much and making it change it from something negative to positive or the opposite, something positive to negative, then what are our emotions doing to our bodies, which are 80% water? Now the next image here, you can see that water is being affected by certain kinds of music. So on the left-hand side, we have water that has been affected by heavy metal music, and on the right-hand side by a specific symphony, a modern symphony, which has been written. And you can see how that same water, which was showing the same crystalline structure before being exposed to the music, same, and then exposed to the music, and then how that crystalline structure changes. So you can see the water is being affected by our emotions, by our intentions, and by music and the vibrations in our environment. Now, The following image is two images of water that have been affected by specific wishes or messages. The left-hand side, we see the message which says, thank you. And then on the right-hand side, hello. So we can see how our positive emotions and intentions can really change the structure of the water and then hopefully change the structure of our own bodies, of life, of the events happening in our lives, that our emotions and intentions have an effect on the world around us. And this is very important for learning how to change our reality. Now, in this next image, we're showing you experiments by the Dr. Larry Dossey, who played cells from the same culture into two beakers. And then he placed the same amount of poison in each to see how many cells would die in each beaker. First, he prayed for the cells in one beaker and then not for the cells in the other beaker. And there was a 20% difference in the survival of these cells. More cells survived, 20% more survived in the beaker for which he prayed than in the beaker for which he did not pray. And then he did visualization. I'm not sure exactly what he visualized, but I imagine light or the cells being well, and he got the same result. 20% higher survival for the ones he visualized for than for the ones he did not visualize. And then he did both. He prayed and visualized, and surprisingly found a 40% difference in the survival of these cells. So this is an experiment which just makes just so clear that our thoughts and our intentions have a direct effect on cells. And that could mean other people, and that could mean ourselves, that could mean plants and animals, that our prayers, our visualizations, our sending light has a direct effect on the world around us, and we could even imagine on situations such as the economy, or people who are ill, or conflicts, war, whatever they may be around us. By praying and visualizing positive realities or light in each situation, we can have a positive effect. Now we're going to move on to some results that were found by the Heart Math Institute in California, where they measured the effect of emotions on the heart rate variability. And we see that when there is frustration or anger, the movement of the heart rate is quite chaotic. And when we are feeling love or gratitude, we can see this rhythmic, harmonious effect on actually the heart. And you can learn more about the Heart Math Institute at www.heartmath.org. Now, this led to further understanding. That is, they found out that 5 minutes of love, of experiencing love or gratitude, will boost our immune system for 5 hours. And also, we are able to experience more positive perceptions, and our thoughts and creativity are increased. And that when we have anger or frustration, and that would probably include their fear or guilt, then that weakens our immune responses for 5 hours. So here we can see on the right-hand side, sincere appreciation or love, and on the left, the frustration or anger. And it was found that the heart actually has a stronger electromagnetic field than the brain, and that the functioning of the heart deeply affects the functioning of the brain and thus the mind. And that there are ways to use the synchronization of the heart to affect the brain so that we can have a more relaxed, clear, more objective perception of life and situations. And also to create a harmony between the, here we say, harmonious heart rhythms, create an internal synchronization, which improves our perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and the ways which we deal with illness and other stresses. We heal ourselves much more quickly when we're feeling love, when we're feeling gratitude. And then there is the matter of the harmony or synchronization between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. When we are experiencing negative emotions, we create confusing messages in which the sympathetic and the parasympathetic give confusing messages, the opposite messages to the organs, and one is saying close down and the other is saying speed up. And this raises havoc with the body and the nervous system. And gradually the various organs begin to malfunction. When we're feeling love, that creates a synchronization. When we experience love in our hearts, beat with coherent rhythms, which in turn allow for the regeneration of all the organs and the mind. That is, feeling love is a very healing process for all of the nervous system. Now, we move on to some experiments by Dr. Dean Ornish. He's a cardiologist, and his site is mentioned below, www.pmiri.org. Let me just mention that I will be uploading all of this to YouTube, and then you can watch it there, and you can stop it, and you can write down these addresses, or just write them as I'm speaking now. In one experiment at Yale University, 119 men and 40 women, those who felt that others loved them had fewer obstacles to blood flow in their heart. That is, feeling loved allows a freer blood flow physically, not energy now. We're not talking about energy. Physically, the blood flow to the heart. 276 persons had better health when they had more connections with others. They asked people how many people they felt connected to. And then they measured the health of these people, how often they get ill, how quickly they recover. And it was a large group sample. And they found that the more connected we feel, the better health we have. And then of 700 elderly persons, those who had others to express their love to, not from, to, and felt useful, and in many cases they may have felt useful to dogs and cats, to their pets, had better health. So that health was based on their ability to feel useful and to feel love for other people. And of course, being loved by other people is also something which improves our health. But the main thing here is that feeling love is that which improves our health. In a study of 10,000 men, those who felt that their wives do not love them had twice as many problems with their hearts. So here we see the effect of feeling not loved. So feeling love for others and feeling not loved and feeling loved by others are very important for our health and our clarity. And then these cardiologists at the HeartMath Institute decided to create a method called the freeze frame method. Freeze frame comes from Hollywood, actually. It says you hold the frame and you look at it and you examine it. And here the frame is something in our lives. I will explain that in a moment, something that's happening. And so what they did was they taught this method, and I will explain it in a moment. And when people did this, they had increased levels of IgA, which means a stronger immune system, increased DHEA, which means reduced aging, less cortisol, which means less stress, and more oxytocin, which is an antidepressant hormone, which is the hormone which women excrete when they're pregnant and which makes them feel good. And all of these are affected by this method, which is called freeze frame. And what we call here in Greece, we have changed the name to listening to your heart. And now you can see here the address for the Heart Math Institute. How do we do this? We sit straight, at least we like to sit straight. It could also perhaps be done lying down. We bring to mind the person, situation, object, event, or problem that concerns us and observe how we feel about this. We do this for about 2 or 3 minutes. Then, for about 3 to 5 minutes, we breathe into the center of your chest, your heart center. Of course, we're breathing into the nostrils, but we imagine that the air or light or energy, preferably, are coming into the center of our chest, and that when we breathe out, it's flowing out of the solar plexus, just down below under the sternum. And so we can imagine that we're inhaling light and energy into the chest area and exhaling from the solar plexus. After doing this for about 3 to 5 minutes, we now bring to mind someone or something that creates the feeling of love and or gratitude. We might feel these feelings in our heart center. So we bring that person or perhaps an expression of the divine, whatever religion you belong to, or even your pet or place in nature, whatever, a piece of music, whatever creates the sense of love and gratitude. And you focus on that and you allow the feelings of love and gratitude to increase in your body, in your heart center, in your mind. And that goes on for about 2 to 5 minutes. And once we have established ourselves in the feeling of love, and we have changed channel, we've changed channel from worrying about the situation that was bothering us, or not being able to find a solution to that, to feeling love. And then we bring that into this love situation. We bring the problem we want to solve, perhaps the person we're having a problem with, or the behavior, or even practical problems. This is taught to bank employees. This is taught to large businesses, to thousands of employees, as a way to find more effective solutions, not only emotional problems, but practical problems. And then as we continue to be focused now on the subject that we have chosen, the problem, we allow ourselves to receive new ways of perceiving this, which are now becoming from this new vibration, this feeling of love in our heart center, which allows us to perceive this differently, to feel differently, and to be inspired to react or act differently in relationship to this problem or situation. And then the next step, of course, would be to employ this new way of perceiving. So after doing the freeze frame method, and we have perceived a new way of seeing this and feeling about this and reacting to this, then we employ this new perception, this new way of dealing with this in our practical life. And so we enjoy that new perception. Now, I'm going to spend the little time that we have left to give you a short, an extremely short introduction to energy psychology and its development. I will speak of some of the forms of energy psychology that I have come in contact with. There may be many forms that I have not come in contact with. All of these we use extensively now here in Greece with our members in seminar settings and in personal appointments. It is said that the father of energy psychology is Roger Callahan, who discovered the thought field therapy, or TFT. You can see his site there at the bottom. And Roger discovered, I won't get into the details now, that by tapping on certain acupuncture points while focusing on the emotion which is disturbing us, that would change the energy field of our body and then change the structure of those emotions. Now this is in addition to the change of belief. Often we have changed beliefs already. We don't believe that we are in danger of heights, of fire, of the airplane. We experience panic without there being any logical belief. And so what energy psychology does is to remove the energy aspect. The mental belief may have changed, but the energy aspect of the fear is still there. And this tapping on these points, you can see most of them are on the face, some of them on the hands, and then under the armpits and in the in the collarbone area. Now, Gary Craig was one of Roger Callahan's main students, and after studying with Roger Callahan, he developed his own method, which is called EFT, or Emotional Freedom Techniques, which is probably the technique of energy psychology which has become more widespread in the world, because it's very simple. The TFT, you have to know how to test. You have to test which points to tap on. With the EFT, it's standard. You tap on these 12 points or 8 points, no matter, depending on how you do it. And you see they're the same points that were discovered by Roger Callahan, but Gary just created a protocol to be done on all situations. Now, an experienced EFT master may alter this, may add other aspects, may tap on other points, may omit some points, but it's a basic procedure that anyone could learn and help others and help themselves, which is the most important aspect. Now, a student of Gary was Pat Carrington, and she developed EFT with choices, and you can see her site there also. And what happened was that after reducing the emotional tension of the fear, say, or the guilt, or the anger, or the bitterness, then one can choose a positive phrase which will help that person, if they believed that phrase, to be free from the negative emotion. So we introduce now beliefs. And so we choose that phrase, and then we say, even though until now I have felt, and we say the emotion, when or because, and we say the stimulus here, I now choose to remember, to realize or experience, and here we fill in our belief. The new belief that we want to believe, and if we believe it, we will be free, even more free, freer from that emotion. And then the tapping process changes a bit. We tap one pass of tapping with the negative emotion, and which we were feeling in the beginning, one with the positive, and then one. Then we have Doc Children and the freeze frame method, which we already talked about. And then we have the Sadhana Method, which some people may perceive as energy psychology and other people not, but we have found it quite useful here in Greece, the Sadhana Method, which was developed by Lester Levinson, who was told he had 3 months to live, and then by developing this method lived 44 more years, and now he has passed away, and now is being taught by Hale Dwoskin. And I don't have time to go into this now, but you can look this up at the site and learn about the Sadhana Method. And then what I consider to be a very beautiful method is the Ho'oponopono, taught by Dr. Yu Len and brought to the light of the internet and many people by Joe Vitale, who is on The Secret. And it's a process in which we accept responsibility for whatever may be happening in our lives. We are creating, we are contributing at least to whatever may be there. And we ask forgiveness for whatever is there that may be bothering us, for anything that might be in us that would be attracting this or contributing to this. Or we thank it for the opportunities for evolution that we have been given until now by that situation. It could be the behavior of a certain person. It could be an illness, our illness, someone else's illness, an economic situation. And then we express love to what is there. But we don't only express it, we need to feel love for what is there. and perhaps gratitude, and then love for ourselves as we are. This is also extremely important. And then we free whatever is there which is bothering us from the need to remain as it is for our evolutionary purpose. And then we thank God or thank the divine for freeing us from whatever may be in us that's contributing to this situation. Now, that was extremely fast. I'm almost out of breath. Explanation of the effect of emotions on the body and mind, and the body and mind on the emotions. Here are some books that you can find. They are listed on our site. If you go to our site and you can just browse around, you'll find this list. Two of them are by myself, Universal Philosophy and The Mystical Circle of Life. One by Fritjof Capra, which was was the first book that I became aware of about the relationship between physics and spirituality. And there are a number of books here: Quantum Consciousness by Stephen Walensky, The Molecules of Emotion by Candace Perth, and New Science of Life by Rupert Sheldrake. We talked about him earlier. And Gary Zukav is an extremely good writer and helps us to explain the relationships between spirituality and science. You can learn about all these forms of energy psychology. There are a number of articles there on each of the subjects I talked about with images. If you go to our site,